Hello, I'm Christian from the Welsh Sports channel and DragonSports, and I've just finished watching the round of 16 game between the Scarlets and the Ospreys. But before I talk about that, I want to talk about the game that happened on Saturday night between Cardiff and Connacht in the Challenge Cup. So this was a real frustrating one for Cardiff fans. Basically, they kicked off the first couple of minutes, Connacht scored straight away, so it immediately puts them on the back foot, and Cardiff are just defending for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and they just couldn't get a foothold in the game. The defence was holding up really well, but there was no territory, and Connacht were just sort of kept coming at us, and it was a good few turnovers or some good defensive sets that kept Cardiff in the game. Then around the 30 to 35 minute mark, Cardiff start coming into the game a little bit. Toby Faletau, who's back from Wales duty, gets his hands on the ball a bit more, and they actually start creating some space. Faletau makes a great break, and he actually forces Hansen to concede a penalty on the 5 metre line, and the ref gives him a yellow card. And at this point you think, well, we've defended for the last near enough half hour, and now we can maybe turn the tide. This is where the frustration came in though for Cardiff. This was the first of many times where they would squander a really good try scoring opportunity. They decided to, instead of taking the points or maybe kicking for the corner, they decided to take a tap and go. They tapped in the first carry into the Connacht defensive line. They knocked the ball on, and this was a pattern that sort of emerged through the game. They didn't let that drop their head though. During that time, they still put a lot of pressure on Connacht, and eventually they did score, and this took them in front 8 points to 7. Then just before half time, Connacht are attacking in the Cardiff half, but not really threatening much, and then Josh McInally gives away a stupid penalty for disrupting at the ruck, and it was just completely needless. That gives Connacht an entry into the 22, and then McInally gives another penalty for a similar infringement, and the ref gives him a yellow card. So the yellow card advantage is gone, and eventually then Connacht break down Cardiff and score and go in at half-time in the lead, when really Cardiff should have just closed out the half and gone in at half-time up. Second half kicks off, and it's the same issue. Cardiff concede straight away pretty much from half-time, and then they're really behind then. They've got 2 scores behind, and it's looking like a tough order. But they kind of freed them in some ways, and they started throwing the ball around a bit, really up the tempo. Johan Mulder really did a lot to get the speed going. Callum Sheedy took a quick tap at one point and made a good break off it. And the up in tempo and the pace that Cardiff showed really started giving Connacht issues. Cardiff started breaking them down, and eventually Ben Thomas scores, and this gets Cardiff right back in the game. The bench coming on then made an impact, and Cardiff really wrestled momentum off Connacht, and they looked to be really the ones in the ascendancy going into the final third. Unfortunately, it's the same story we've had for 2 years now in this team under Matt Sherratt, and it's just playing the game only in periods. They had 10 minutes in the first half where they caused trouble and took control. There was 20 minutes in the second half, but they just can't consistently keep control of a game. The amount of entries that Cardiff had into the 22 and then squandered them, I think it was 3 off line out. They had a line out in the 10 metre from the line and didn't hit the jumper. 3 times that happened. And then there was a couple of times where there was a knock on as well, or they were turned over at the breakdown. I think it was about 7 entries into the 22, and they couldn't convert. And that was basically the biggest problem on the day. The goal kicking again remained an issue, which it has all season. And I think maybe had some of the goal kicks gone over, it would have put a little bit more pressure on Connacht. I don't know. I mean, it's all a guessing game at this point. But this is really another opportunity gone. And we speak about it over and over again with Cardiff this season and last season. And yes, they did manage to pick up a few more wins at the beginning of the year, but it's the same pattern that's crept in now as last season. Nearly men, within 1 try, and it's 1 win since Christmas. It's just not good enough if you want to be competing for any cups or any league positions, trying to get to the playoff. It's going to be a really tough run in for Cardiff now. A few players that did impress. Ben Thomas was excellent on the day, though he did pick up a yellow card right at the end. Kieran Azarati was really impressive. both in the loose and at scrum time. And as I spoke about, Johan Mulder, really good at up in the intensity and tempo, and a real terrier in defence, and set the tone a few times. So he's been a really good pickup. Then we went into the Ospreys and Scarlets game. This was of course a rematch of last week's game, but the Ospreys were at home. I kind of fancy the Ospreys for this one. From the start, they started like they did, like a bat out of hell, like they did in the last week's game, but this week they didn't let up. Ospreys scored 2 tries early on. Jack Morgan basically created the first one and scored the second one. Scarlets come back with a really good backs move, really silky stuff to split open the Ospreys defence. But the power came on from the Ospreys, and the physicality, they just turned the screws and they strangled the life out of the Scarlets. And it was complete night and day from the game last week, where Scarlets were throwing the ball around, creating opportunities. They didn't get a chance in this one. So much physicality coming from the Ospreys. They're big hitters, you know, you had your Jack Morgans, Dewi, like Rhys Davis was really influential, especially in that first half, and Dan Edwards was excellent. The backs didn't really get that much ball. It was very much bullied up front, I think, and really good tone set by the forwards, and they stamped their authority on this game. And maybe it was just a game too far for the Scarlets team after doing well in the league game last week. There was just too many missed tackles from them, and they just never really got going. Quite a few handling errors as well, and it was just simple skills that last week they were coming off, and this week they didn't. But I think it was just under the pressure that they came from the Ospreys. Dan Edwards was man of the match, and well deserved. Really controlled the game, had a really good break early on, which set up another try. And he was excellent. I really hope we get to see him have a run for Wales in the summer, because he looks a real player. 6 tries in total. It was 36-14, so quite the romping. Even bragging rights, but I think the Ospreys will be happier with this. I thought they would target the Cup, which they've done, and now a big game next week. They have Lyon visiting the Swansea.com, so this is a real good opportunity. Everyone knows that the French teams are not the best travellers. Not to say that Lyon are going to come without their full strength team, but historically French teams have not travelled well away from home, so this is a massive opportunity now. And I believe if they were to go through to the semi-finals, I believe that would be in the Swansea.com too, and of course the finals in the Millennium Stadium. So I mean, this is a great opportunity for the Ospreys. You had 9,000 in the stadium today, so a little bit less than what was at Parker Scarlets, but a large amount of those was Scarlets fans who travelled the short journey. Let's hope for this Lyon game that the Ospreys can get some fans in there. I don't know if they can do something with, schools or whatever, just fill the stadium as much as they can and really create that atmosphere and make it difficult for the travelling French team. I'm really excited about that one, and I'll be previewing it for you next week on DragonSports. Catch you there.